Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. So a lot has been going on and I'm having trouble keeping up with it. So let me try to kind of put it on one video for you, some of the stuff here at least. So there was an acid attack and the suspect was black and he looked like a rapper who was recently in the news named DW Flame. And the attack has something to do with Lucille and Arlington. Maybe that was the cross street that it took place. It was in the news clip. And it connects to a Lucy Harrison, who was said to have been killed after an argument over Donald Trump. Killed by her father nonetheless. And that connects to Harrison Ford. Remember, I'm trying to sell my Ford car, and they're trying to press me about it, and they're using technology to confuse people about how messed up the car is, what have you. They can remotely hack the computer, and I made videos about that recently. So you have that Ford. Then Harrison, right? Harrison Ford played Han Solo in Star Wars, where you have the Luke Skywalker, right? Anakin Skywalker, Horus the Skywalker. This is connected to these characters in terms of the wordplay, in terms of superimposition, what have you. And Harrison Ford, Han Solo flies the Millennium Falcon, right? So you have the Skywalker and the Falcon. And so again, you have that Lucille and Arlington and the Lucy Harrison connection. Also the DW Flame. And DW Flame was stabbed with some kind of weapon, might be a box cutter, which goes back to my story with an incident, a run-in with me and some Northerners. And recently, there was this mass shooting in San Jose where these Northerners were said to be involved. I saw in the comments that it might have been a certain Norteño neighborhood, known as Seven Trees, which they share with the Crips on Seven Trees. And for those of you who have been watching my videos, you know the connection there, right? Scripture is the plain words for Crips root. And I used to hang out with some of these guys and what have you, and there's a long story connected to that. And I used to define it as Christ rest in peace and community revolution and progress, and I was the voice of reason in the streets, hanging out with these various guys. Never was I a bad guy ever. And it has to do with what cultures there are there, right? You have jocks, you have nerds, you have emos, you have goths, you have populars, you have floaters, people float from one group to another, you have good ats, right? Artsies. You have different kinds of groups that are all unappealing to somebody who's a profoundly romantic person, intensely adventurous, what have you. And you also have that community revolution and progress argument. And so I found my way to certain groups. I remember when I was at Live Oak, there was maybe 20 black people tops in the whole school, 2,000 people. Okay, if that. And, most of us hung out with each other. And there was Crips there and a group named Thug Life that was aligned to the Crips. Okay, they had connections to the Thug Life group that Tupac used to rap. And it's in my story. I don't want to go on and on about that stuff. I don't think being a gang member is a good thing. It's not a good thing. I connect, the gangs to the occult, the occult symbols in Chicago. The word Set, a gang member's Set. And Set connects to the Egyptian deity Set, which is spelled S-E-T-H, and also S-E-T. Set's also called Sutek and Suti and Seti and so on and so forth. And there's pharaohs named after him, at least one, and so on and so forth. So I made a video before this, is I'm going to release after this, where I show a clip that was played after I saw this in the news. And also there's another video clip that talked about a Christian that was attacked while preaching in the streets. And recently I was in downtown Berkeley by Detroit in Michigan, preaching, and a police officer rolled up and parked there and so on and so forth, right? They tell him to do stuff like that for what have you. And I brought up that, hey, maybe he might try to assassinate me. I was like lightweight. I was almost like joking, but it was just like an awkward situation. I was kind of, trying to help myself deal with it. I wasn't like panicking super tough, but just kind of like, okay, that happened. Boom, maybe that's that. I'm saying, oh, probably not, and kind of laughed lightweight or something like that, right? Oh, yeah, so they try to make it so I sound bipolar, but what I was saying is that I made a video before this that I'm going to release after this. And in that video, I caught a clip of a kind of YouTube clip from my father's phone. My father plays clips, on repeat, and you can tell that to some degree they come from the government, and sometimes there's threats there. And in that clip, there was a lady saying that she raised somebody, and she's crying, and it's about someone's mother being abused, and maybe their son caused it or something like this. And in the acid attack, the person who was attacked looks like my mother, okay? And in her full name is my mother's full first name scrambled into it. And so that's not a coincidence, right? That's part of targeting where they threaten you, they provoke you. Okay, imagine if I was a gangster from the hood or some angry white gentleman from, a rural area, with a lot of guns, who's, just lost their job, wife just left him or something. You might start running outside and yell at the top of your lungs and say, I wish you people would. And then someone might call the cops, right? It's that kind of stuff that they do. They try to throw people off. And that's a play on words, throwing them off a cliff, right? Knowledge, no ledge. Throwing them off a cliff to throw them off and keeping them from getting their thoughts together, right? To get her. And they're trying to make it harder for me to get an attractive female before you people say, hey, that's why, that's not why. You know many drug addicts, rock and roll people, reckless gang members, thugs, rap fans, okay, heavy metal people, metalheads, emos, K-pops. You know how many people like that are out there that get chicks? And they get chicks with little problem. The problem is that the governing class, which is mostly, if not all, males when it comes to the decision-making process, led people astray, and people roll with it, including females, and they have bad judgment, and they're scared to date the hero, and there's certain social barriers, and they're suppressing my videos. But first and foremost, I can't approach women because of the way they think. I can't approach them successfully. I have videos where you see me approaching them, asking them questions, what have you, but I can't approach them in a successful romantic way. Plus, I live with my parents and I'm 44. There's a lot of things that come into play. And I'm not going to settle. The word settle is a play on words for Set El. El is the Canaanite deity who makes a funny face of nerds trying to get the hot chicks, even though they tend to date other nerds when they, and marry them. But they take advantage of dumb sluts who are far too stupid to be worthy of me. And of course, it's also a play on words for Set El, I-L-L. And L rhymes with hell, rhyme and reason, so on and so forth. The last picture on the screen is my mother. She has some kind of neck brace on, and they seem to be causing her some kind of pain with remote attacks and the fumes and so on and so forth. Okay. And some people who work for the government have admitted to me that they're doing that. And so, you see, I show a great deal of restraint and tolerance. I'm not some crazy person with some kind of delusions who, turns to violence. I move in a very wise and strategic and tactical manner. I have a rational way of doing things. I have a rational mind.